On paper, Bob Stoops has hauled in his best recruiting class there at Oklahoma since 2010. We bring in Graham Dudley from Crimson and Cream Machine to break it down further. Graham joined us for our National Signing Day show last night on some of the broad picture topics and some of the late signings. But Graham will break it down even further with what we both would agree upon seems to be a record of early enrollees for this Oklahoma class, and this is kind of the in vogue in college football at this point. But I don't know that I've seen a team bring in 11 early, and that's of a huge advantage to the program and obviously the individual player.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back on so soon, Mark. But it's definitely something that the coaching staff wanted to make happen if they possibly could. Bob Stoops talked a little bit about it in his press conference yesterday, that the early enrollees not only will allow them to see and evaluate these players throughout the spring, but also gave Oklahoma the chance to get kind of a jump start on its next couple of classes, like 2018. That's why yesterday was such a low drama National Signing Day for the program. It was because half the class was already on campus, and the other half got in their letters of intent really quickly. And like I said, a really low drama day for the Sooners, and they're already hitting the ground running as far as 2018 is concerned. But the 11 guys that are already on campus, these aren't no-name dudes. These are guys like probably future quarterback Chris Robinson, four-star pocket passer from Texas. He's one of the 5 best pro-style quarterbacks in that class, in the 2017 class. We also got a guy that Bob mentioned specifically in his press conference yesterday, is Marquise Brown, a receiver out of Florida, who went to a junior college in California. And Bob Stoops compared Brown directly to D.D. Westbrook, which is a little ambitious, if I do say so, but he was just mostly talking about how fast and agile and quick he is, and I think that would indicate that we could see Brown make a real impact on the field immediately. And other guys that'll be good to have on campus include a linebacker from Oklahoma named Levi Draper, who's a 4-star, another linebacker from California, Addison Gumbs, who's also a 4-star. Creed Humphrey is an offensive lineman from Oklahoma out of Shawnee. And then we've got a couple of running backs, Trey Sermon and Marcellus Sutton. Sutton is a junior college transfer out of Lackawanna in Pennsylvania, where the Sooners have pulled down a few players over the past several years. And then Trey Sermon is getting a lot of Joe Mixon comparisons lately. He's going to be just a freshman, but if he does have some time in the spring, I expect both those guys will maybe see at least a little bit of playing time next season, because they did have that extra work in the spring. We're bringing in another running back, Kennedy Brooks, but he's not going to have that benefit of spring practice, so it'll remain to be seen how that extra time will benefit a guy like Trey Sermon.
So, Graham, despite dominating the Big 12, going undefeated, the defense obviously a concern, not just last year, but for the last several years in regards to what Oklahoma expects to be, and that's competing for national championships as well. So 75th in the nation against points per game, 119th against passing. The consideration there and putting it into context, obviously, I don't think this is the 119th worst pass defense in the nation. It's a based on the schedule as well, and facing 2 superior teams out of conference, and also obviously the style of play in the Big 12. Still, defense needs to be addressed, and your thoughts about what Bob Stoops and his staff was able to do on National Signing Day.
They brought in some good talent that's really going to, I think, help with those issues. And like you said, last year's defense was pretty bad at times, and no one's going to forget quickly the Texas Tech game in particular. But in 2015, the Sooners had the best defense in the conference, and it was looking a lot better than it did last year. So it's not a scheme issue necessarily if Mike Stoops can bring in the guys that he really wants. And I think that he has done a good job of that in this class. We got a 4-star out of South Lake Carroll, which is a high school in Texas that turns out a lot of good talent. His name is Robert Barnes, and we're expecting good things from him. He's a defensive back. We've got defensive backs, 4 stars, Justin Broyles and Trey Brown. Interestingly, Trey Brown, who has been committed since March of 2016, almost flipped to Florida, apparently in the final days of his recruitment, but the Sooners were able to hold on to him. So a lot of good talent, especially in the linebacker and defensive back positions. A couple more four-star linebackers. I already mentioned Addison Gumbs as an early enrollee, and then we've got Kenneth Murray out of Texas, who will also come in. So we're going to have a lot of options and guys who, if they really need to, might even be able to play their freshman year. But I would say that the weakest position group probably for the class is the defensive line. Obviously, we weren't able to nail down the five-star on the final day, so we're looking at, we got Tyrese Lott out of Ardmore to commit to flip from TCU in the final days. And then other than that, I mean, we're looking at Zacchaeus McKinney, a Texas kid. He's a three-star. Kid Jaker Daly, a defensive end from Florida. But not a whole lot of big names in that defensive line class. And Marvin Wilson just couldn't quite pull down. And we also lost a linebacker, middle linebacker, Jacob Phillips, who flipped to LSU about a week before signing day. He was the only five-star in the entire class, and I think that would have really helped to shore up, even if we didn't have a great defensive line class, that would have really helped to shore up the sort of the middle of the defense and the run defense a little bit. So a little disappointing how Oklahoma finished that class there. Like I said, I think their defensive line is probably the weakest unit as a whole that they were able to bring in. But these are still three-star guys. I mean, I think they can really get the job done and help the defense be much better than it was this past season.
Graham, what we don't see among these 27 recruits is a quarterback. Now, we know that Baker Mayfield is moving on after this season. What you've addressed recently on Crimson and Cream Machine is the quarterback situation there at Oklahoma. And for those Sooner fans who are maybe locked in on Oklahoma or the Big 12, maybe not necessarily familiar with Kyler Murray, obviously he was a huge recruit that went to Texas A&M, who has since transferred to Oklahoma. Can you kind of let us know what the backup situation looks like this year, and then the starting situation, what it projects to be in 2018 and beyond?
Absolutely. So Kyler Murray is finally going to be eligible this year after sitting out his season for transferring. And so he's generally expected to be the backup quarterback for the Sooners this season. But there are also lots of people who think that the Sooners need to try to get him on the field in other ways, maybe run a little bit of wildcat or just get a little more creative than just letting him sit on the bench all season, because he's a really good athlete. And it would be a shame that if we weren't able to use him at all this season. But beyond that, I do expect Kyler Murray to start once Baker leaves in 2018. And Kyler is going to have 2 years of eligibility left at that point. He's kind of a smaller guy. He's even a few inches shorter than Baker Mayfield, which has led people to say maybe he's not the best fit for that position, but I think that he has a great arm. He showed it in high school. He's extremely mobile, which is something that Baker to an extent brings to the game, and Kyler Murray could bring even more so. So I think that he is the favorite to win that job for the 2 years after Baker's departure. And beyond that, I'd take a hard look at the guy that we brought in this year, Chris Robinson, the pro-style quarterback from Texas. I think that he committed to the Sooners very early. The Sooners knew that he was the guy coming into the class. And even though we do have Austin Kendall on the bench this year, he was our backup quarterback this season, and thankfully we didn't have to use him very much. I think that he's going to compete for that job at that point. But I would not be surprised at all if it went to Robinson once Kyler Murray graduates.
I don't think there's a program in America that has, on paper and based on last season's results and what's happened in the last few years, a more firm hold on a conference than Oklahoma in the Big 12. We know things change quickly in college football. We know that the likes of TCU and Baylor have risen to prominence in the past and aren't that far away. The Big 12 is down. Is it as down as much as we thought during the regular season? I think that the postseason gives the conference some hope. You can't extrapolate 6 games, but still, it was a favorable showing for the Big 12 against the rest of college football and like-seeded teams, and Oklahoma, obviously, the best team heading into 2017. Graham Dudley from Crimson and Cream Machine breaking down the 2017 class, Bob Stoops' best in years, and the quarterback situation going forward. Thanks a lot, Graham.
Absolutely, Mark. Happy National Signing Day. We got through it, man.
Yes, we did.